Welcome to Davy's Take. Today we are talking about Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, the 7th installment in the Mission Impossible franchise. Ethan Hunt and his IMF team must track down a dangerous weapon before it falls into the wrong hands. I love the Mission Impossible franchise. It's one of those weird franchises where the later installments are the best installments. I mean, 4, 5, and 6 are definitely my favorite installments of the franchise, and I think Mission Impossible Fallout is one of the best action movies ever made. I also love Mission Impossible 3. I know that film gets mixed reviews, but I have a soft spot for that film because I saw it when I was like 10 years old, opening night. It was so disturbing and dark. I was like, holy shit, this movie's insane. It was the first J.J. Abrams project I saw, and I loved his fast-paced technique he had with Mission Impossible 3, and I just loved how 4, 5, and 6 really elevated the best parts about this franchise, and it's the action. So of course I was excited for Dead Reckoning Part 1 because they've been on a hot streak. 4, 5, and 6 aren't just great Mission Impossible movies, they're great movies in general. So yes, I was very excited for this film. I had high expectations, and unfortunately I probably should have lowered my expectations because I was disappointed with Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. Now before you get upset and go, oh fuck Dave, Mission Impossible 7 sucks, how could you say that? Well, it doesn't suck. I think Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 is a fun film. It's pretty well done. It just unfortunately doesn't come close to the quality or excellence from 4, 5, and 6. But I'll talk about the things I liked about the film. I really love the action here. I mean, the way the action's been done in these later Mission Impossible films is just fantastic. The wide shots, the practical effects, the great editing so you understand what's going on, barely any shaky cam. I mean, this film is filled with so many action sequences, and it really keeps the film going. I feel like it's paced pretty well because this film is nearly 3 hours long, and it doesn't feel its runtime because there's so much action in here. I mean, the action in this franchise is so well done because it just keeps going. There's a bunch of sequences in the film that are filled with suspense and a lot of great action. The ones I can think of on the top of my head that I really enjoyed was towards the beginning. There's something going on in an airport that I thought was really fun and really intense. And then I love the last act of this movie with the train sequence you've seen in the trailer. That's a lot of fun. I always love a good train sequence. You can never go wrong with a good train sequence in your action film. And all the performances are great. Tom Cruise is great. He does all his own stunts. And I really do appreciate everything he's been doing with films and Hollywood, making everything real, making people go to theaters. I really appreciate everything Tom Cruise is doing for the film industry. And yes, there's another crazy Tom Cruise stunt in this film. You've probably seen it from the specials and the trailers. Another crazy stunt he does, just like in the later entries. It's fucking nuts, it's bonkers, it's awesome. And I like Haley Atwell's performance. I won't talk about her character too much because it's not really in the trailer, but the character's fine. But I just liked Haley Atwell's performance. I thought she was a lot of fun. And I think the film does a pretty good job of setting the stakes. What I mean by that is you feel the higher stakes here. You feel this larger threat. You feel like our characters are actually in danger. And for the most part, I thought they did a pretty good job there. But unfortunately, that goes into one of my issues with the film is the overall threat. There are times where it's pretty interesting. There are times where you're like, holy shit, this is a problem. What the hell are they going to do? But there's an element to this threat that has to do with AI technology, and it can get confusing. So the film has to explain a lot of certain elements to this threat and the people around this threat and the different aspects and elements to this threat. So this film is filled with so much exposition. There are times in some of the exposition scenes in this film, it felt like I was watching Matrix Reloaded. There's a lot of dialogue here that honestly doesn't make too much sense. You get the overall threat. It's not hard to follow the plot itself. The thing that gets kind of confusing is certain character motivations, certain elements to the story that overall makes the story feel a little clunky and bloated. I'm not trying to say I want my Mission Impossible movie to have a super complex plot or a simple plot. I just feel like the best Mission Impossible movies have a plot that's really easy to follow, and those action sequences really elevate what's going on because you clearly understand a goal and what they're trying to accomplish. In Mission Impossible 7, it feels like sometimes the plot's confused with itself, so sometimes these action sequences can be a little hard to follow, not from a technical standpoint, but from a storytelling standpoint. And this film has a lot of new characters, and it has problems balancing all of them. It does not give enough screen time to really develop some of these characters and really understand some of their motivations. There's also some characters that have been established in the series that we've grown to love, and they're not in the film that much. And they do things that come off as frustrating because it seems like they're just doing the same actions that they did in previous films. You're like, really? We're going through this again? Also, the villain here isn't that interesting. They established that he's done things in the past that really affect Ethan, but honestly, throughout the film, his presence and some of the things that he does didn't really hook me. But the film does have two villains, I guess, and the other one is more interesting because of the higher stakes and the overall threat and some of the things that it does. But it's also kind of an issue with the film because it goes into all the exposition that I was saying and sometimes makes the movie a little confusing. You're probably sitting there thinking, what the hell are you talking about? You make no sense at all, Dave. I'm sorry, it's hard to talk about this film without spoilers because there's a lot to talk about. But honestly, the more I talk about this film, I realize there are a lot more issues with this film than I remembered. I don't know, this film just felt a little off, and maybe that's because of production issues. This film was filled with production issues because of the pandemic. That would make a lot of sense. But even with those production issues, I still had fun with this film. I don't want you guys to think I hated this film. I just had high expectations for it because I love this franchise so much. And I think this is a worthy addition to the franchise. It's filled with that action that you'll love. It's that quality action that feels real with the wide shots, the great edits, the real stunts, the practical effects. It's all there. It's nonstop. It's great. This film just has problems with its narrative, with too much exposition, too many characters. It does feel bloated, it does feel clunky, and it definitely has problems with its story. Because of that, it doesn't hit that same level of quality or excellence as 4, 5, and 6, but it's still a fun Mission Impossible adventure. I'm going to give Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 7 Davey Daves. Man, that's a bummer. I wish it was at least an 8. But I guess this is the summer of lowering expectations because it's been kind of rough so far. Except for Spider-Verse. Keep your expectations high for Spider-Verse. If you haven't seen it, you will not be disappointed. So, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. Let me know what you guys thought of it once you've seen it. I'm curious to hear. And thank you so much for watching. Click here to see more of Dave's Takes.